So training is like my part-time job, guys. Training is like my part-time job. So right now I am working as a part-time trainer with the Ashok IT. I basically handle here MERN stack, mean stack, and basically we call it as a UI full stack course. I take separate batches on React. I take batches on Angular and even on the Node.js. So this is what I handle in Ashok IT. Okay. So this is very short introduction about me. In today's workshop, we are going to understand what is asynchronous programming in JavaScript. What is asynchronous programming in JavaScript? What are the benefits of asynchronous programming? Now, this workshop will be in two parts, guys. This workshop will be in two parts because it is very big topic and it is very complex topic in JavaScript. So I required almost 2 sessions to cover it. So what we will do, this week we will cover session 1. That is today. And next week I will cover one more session, so that you guys will have some time to practice whatever I have covered till now, so that it will be very easy for you to cover next session, that is session number 2. Okay. And tomorrow, guys, I am taking workshop on Git and GitHub. So in case if you are interested to learn Git and GitHub, then you can register, guys. You can register, and it's completely free workshop. You can register for this workshop to understand exactly what is Git and GitHub. So whether you are working on UI full stack or Java full stack or .NET full stack or Python full stack, whatever full stack you are working, once you join your company, your day will start with Git and your day is going to end with Git. Your day will start with Git, and it will end with Git. So that much important this Git and GitHub is for the developers. So everybody should know about Git and GitHub. So in case if you want to learn about Git and GitHub, then you guys can join tomorrow's workshop, and you will find the link. On our website. Or you might have joined lot of WhatsApp groups, right? On Ashok IT channel. So they have updated it. So from there you can register and you can join it. Okay. This is about the tomorrow's workshop. Tomorrow workshop at same time. Timing is same, guys. It's almost from 10 a.m. to 12 p.m. 10 a.m. to 12 p.m. Okay. Now this is about my introduction. This is about tomorrow's workshop. That is what I have covered. This is my introduction, and this is about the tomorrow's workshop and how today's workshop is going to be. That is what I have covered. So after the workshop, I will be providing you guys this paint file. Whatever current paint file I am using, this paint file I will provide. Plus, I will provide you one PDF. I will provide you the PDF which is related to today's workshop content. I will provide you notes in a PDF format. Which is related to today's workshop content. In the same way, tomorrow I'm going to take one more workshop. In those workshop also, I will provide you the notes. So let me just show you how I will provide the notes. So let me just go to my downloads. And here already I have created the notes, and this is how I'm going to provide the notes. So entire notes of this workshop I will provide. Whatever I'm going to cover in this workshop, everything I will provide. Okay. Yeah. So now let's start our session. let's start our session. So our workshop topic is asynchronous programming in JavaScript. It is asynchronous programming in JavaScript. So first of all, we need to understand what is JavaScript. We need to understand what is JavaScript. Okay. Okay. So let's come back here, guys. Let's first understand what is JavaScript. So before I explain what is JavaScript, if any one of you knows what is JavaScript, then feel free to add your answers on the chat. Feel free to add your answers on the chat, guys. What is JavaScript? Anybody knows the answer? Whatever answer you know, feel free to add. If you start interacting with me, if you answer on chat, then you will be active in this session. You will not feel boring in this session. Okay. So whenever I ask any kind of questions, try to reply it. So what is JavaScript, guys? Anybody knows? Anyone have the idea about the JavaScript? What is JavaScript? Okay, nice. I got some answers. JavaScript is a programming language, loosely typed language, scripting language. Nice. Okay, I got some answer. Now, let me try to explain exactly what is JavaScript. JavaScript is a single-threaded synchronous programming language. What is JavaScript? JavaScript is a single-threaded synchronous programming language. What is JavaScript? JavaScript is a single threaded. Now we have to understand what is single threaded. Single threaded synchronous. What is synchronous? We need to understand. Programming language. Now, if you understand these three terms, what is single threaded, what is synchronous, what is programming language, then you will understand exactly what is JavaScript. Okay, now let's try to derive all these terms. So let's understand what is programming language first of all. Let's understand what is programming language. We have a lot of programming languages in the market, like Java is one of the programming language. Your C# is one of the programming language. Your JavaScript is also programming language. Then exactly what is programming language? This is what we have to understand. So a programming language is a medium to give instructions to a computer. Programming language is nothing but it is a set of instructions given to a computer. What is programming language? Programming language is a set of instructions given to a computer to perform some action, some or any action. It's like now you are a person, you are a human. Nothing but we are a developer. Let's assume that we are a developer. Now we have systems. Now, as a developer, you are going to give some instructions to this system to do some action. And those instructions are called programming language. Those instructions are nothing but your programming language. Nothing but those instructions we are going to give in a language, and that language we are going to call as a programming language. So basically what we are going to do with the JavaScript, now we are going to give some instructions to whom? To machine. Then what is synchronous? Now when you give instructions, now as a developer, you are going to give instructions. To machine. You are going to give instructions to machine or a computer. Now, what machine or computer will do? What machine or computer will do with these instructions? They are going to follow those instructions. This machine is going to follow the instruction. Follow the instruction. It is going to follow the instruction. Now, as a developer, you are going to provide instructions. You are going to provide instructions to machine. Now, what this machine will do, it will follow that instruction. Now, this process of following the instruction, we call as a execution. We call as a execution. If someone asks you, what is execution? Execution is nothing but following the instructions. The process of following the instruction is called execution. Now, as a developer, whenever you give instruction to machine is going to follow that instructions. Machine is going to follow that instructions. Now, how machine is going to follow that instructions, that is what we have to understand. Let's assume that you have given instruction 1, instruction 2, instruction 3, instruction 4. You have given 4 instructions to your machine. Now, your machine is going to follow this instruction. Now, how machine is going to follow the instruction? First, it will follow the first instruction. Once that instruction is followed, once the action of that instruction is done, then it will go and follow the second instruction. And once the action of second instruction is done, then it will go and follow the third instruction. Once the action of third instruction is done, then it will follow the fourth instruction. It means it will not go to the second instruction until it finish the action of first instruction. And this behavior is called synchronous. This behavior is called synchronous. Synchronous is nothing but following the instructions step by step and not moving to the second instruction till it finishes the action of first instruction. That behavior we are going to call as a synchronous. We are going to call as a synchronous. Synchronous means whatever instruction you will give, it will follow those instructions step by step. And it will not move to the next instruction till he finishes the action of first instruction. Action of first instruction. This is the meaning of synchronous. What is single-threaded then? What is single-threaded? Single-threaded means your JavaScript is going to execute one instruction at a time. It means if you have given 4 instructions, now all the 4 instructions, it will not execute simultaneously. What it will do? First, it will execute the first instruction. First, it will follow the first instruction. Then it will follow the next instruction. So at a time, it will follow only one instruction. It will not follow 2 instructions at same time. That is called single-threaded. That is called single-threaded. It means JavaScript is a language which follows instruction step by step. And at a time, it executes only one instruction or it follows only one instruction. That is single-threaded. Understood, guys? What is programming language? What is single-threaded? And what is synchronous? Single-threaded and synchronous. All this I have provided in the notes. Okay, I will not waste my time writing the definitions of all this in the paint file. Single-threaded means if you given multiple instructions, then it will execute one instruction at a time. Synchronous means whatever instructions you have given, it will execute step by step. Means once the first instruction action is performed, once its execution is done, then it will go to the next instruction. That is the meaning of synchronous. Now in my PDF, I have given the definition of all these things. So whenever I give this PDF, you will have the notes as well. So here if you see, I have explained what is synchronous, what is single-threaded like this. I have added these points here. Okay. Understood, guys? Let me know whether you have understood or not. what is JavaScript, and what is the meaning of single-threaded synchronous programming language? Just let me know in yes or no. Okay, this is how we are going to learn. Now, let's assume that you have created one JavaScript program. You have created one JavaScript program. In that JavaScript program, let's assume you have written 5 instructions. Instruction 1, instruction 2, instruction 3, instruction 4, instruction 5. Now we know JavaScript is going to execute all these instructions step by step. It will start from top to bottom approach. It will start from top to bottom approach. It will execute first instruction, then it will execute second instruction, then it will execute third instruction, then fourth, then fifth. This is the behavior of JavaScript. And this is what we call as a synchronous programming. This is what we call as a synchronous programming. So by default, JavaScript is a synchronous programming. It means at a time it will execute only one instruction, and that too step by step. Now let's assume that the first instruction is taking 1 second to execute. Second instruction is also taking 1 second to execute. And third instruction is taking 5 seconds to execute. Fourth second is taking 1 second to execute. Fifth statement is using 1 second to execute. Let's assume first statement takes 1 second, second takes 1 second, but third takes 5 seconds. Third takes 5 seconds. It means third instruction is a little complex instruction. So a complex task. Now JavaScript has to perform some complex action to finish this third instruction. That's why it is taking 5 seconds. Now, whenever you ask JavaScript to execute this instruction, in that case, what happens? This fourth instruction has to wait. This fourth instruction has to wait till it completes the action of first, second, and third. It means almost fourth statement has to wait 7 seconds. 7 seconds. Because it will take 1, it will take 2, and it takes 5. So fourth statement has to wait 7 seconds to execute. Suppose if fourth statement is dependent on third, then there is no other option. You have to wait for 7 seconds. You have to wait for 7 seconds. There is no other option. But if fourth statement is not dependent on third, suppose third and fourth are independent statements. In that case, we should not make fourth statement to wait for 7 seconds. We should not make fourth statement to wait for 7 seconds. In that case, what we need to do? In that case, somehow we have to make third statement and fourth statement execute simultaneously or parallelly. What we need to do? Somehow we have to make execution of third and fourth statement at same time. We should start execution of third and fourth statement at same time. Because we know third will take little bit more time to execute. In that case, we don't want to make fourth statement wait. Why? Because fourth is not dependent on third. It is an independent statement. Then we should not make them wait. So somehow we have to make multiple statements execute simultaneously. Simultaneously means at same time. So somehow we have to make multiple statements execute simultaneously. Or we can say, in easy words, we can say we have to make multiple statements execute at same time. So what happens in this case? In this case, your program will execute at faster rate. And it will not block two different actions. It will not block the actions. So somehow we have to make multiple statement execute at same time. And this process of making statement execute at same time or simultaneously, we call as asynchronous programming. Asynchronous programming. So if someone asks you, what is asynchronous programming? So we have to say that asynchronous programming is a technique. It is a technique to execute multiple statements simultaneously. Asynchronous programming is a technique to execute multiple statements at same time or simultaneously. Understood, guys? What is asynchronous programming now? So what is asynchronous programming? This is one of the very famous interview question in JavaScript. So in case if you are learning JavaScript and if you are attending the interviews of JavaScript, people will ask, what is asynchronous programming? So we have to say that it is a technique of executing multiple statement at same time or simultaneously. Now, if you go with synchronous programming, there are a lot of problems. Why? Because everything is going to execute step by step. Even if two actions are not dependent on each other, still those things will execute step by step. So a lot of problems we have with this synchronous programming. That is why we don't want to go with synchronous programming technique. We want to go with asynchronous programming technique. What is asynchronous programming technique? It is a technique to execute multiple statements or multiple actions simultaneously. And when we should go for asynchronous programming, if multiple actions are not dependent on each other, or they are independent, are not dependent on each other. If multiple actions are not dependent on each other, then go for asynchronous programming. And if multiple actions are dependent, on each other, then go for synchronous programming. This is what we have to understand. And this is one of the famous interview question again. When to go with synchronous, when to go with asynchronous. That is how people are going to ask. Understood, guys, up to here? What is asynchronous programming? And why we have to move towards asynchronous programming? So we have to move towards asynchronous programming to improve the performance of our application. The main purpose is to improve the performance of the application. This is the main purpose of moving towards asynchronous programming. Okay, so till now I just covered what is JavaScript, and then I have tried to explain what is single threaded, what is synchronous, and then I have explained you why asynchronous. What is asynchronous and why asynchronous? What and why? This is what I tried to explain till now. Yeah, let me know on the chat, guys, whether you have understood or not. Great. Okay. Now let's list out drawbacks of synchronous programming. Drawbacks of synchronous programming. Okay, drawbacks of synchronous programming. The first drawback of synchronous programming is it will block the execution. The first drawback is it blocks the execution. Now, what is the meaning of blocking the execution? Now, when you are executing statement 1, statement 2, statement 3, till that time, statement 4 has to wait. Statement 4 has to wait. It means the execution of statement 4 is blocked. It is waiting till it finishes the execution of 1, 2, 3. So that's what the meaning is. It blocks the execution. And the problem with this is it affects the performance. It affects the performance of the application. Due to this, it affects the performance of the application. Now, second problem. What is the second problem with this? Now, this approach, synchronous programming approach, is not suitable for large scale application. It is not suitable. It is not suitable for large scale applications. Because in large scale applications, there will be lot of actions which are independent, which are not dependent on each other. And now, if you are blocking your actions, then it will be difficult to maintain those applications. If it is blocking your actions, which are not dependent on other actions, then it will be difficult to maintain that application, which is going to affect user experience. So it is not good. It is not good approach for user experience. Now, user are going to fed up with your application. So it will affect the user experience. Plus, apart from this, whatever resources we have, we cannot utilize it properly. So insufficient or inefficient resource utilization. When your actions are getting blocked. So if you are performing one long action, another action got blocked. It means we are not able to utilize the actions or features which are not dependent on the current feature, which is taking a lot of time to execute. So inefficient resource utilization, that is one more problem. So like this, you are going to face a lot of problems if you go for synchronous programming. That is the reason it is recommended to go with asynchronous program. Now the question is how to achieve asynchronous programming. How to achieve asynchronous programming, or how to implement asynchronous programming. Now, if you want to achieve or implement asynchronous programming in JavaScript, then you have to take the help of timer functions like set timeout or set interval. We can take the help of callback functions. We can take the help of promises in JavaScript with async and await. So these are the techniques which we can use to implement asynchronous programming. Now we need to understand all this. What are the setter functions, how it works, what is callback, how it works, what is promises, how it works. That is what we should know. Now, once you know all this, then you can implement asynchronous programming. Asynchronous programming. Okay, so let's learn all this step by step. First, let's start with callback. Let's understand what is callback. Let's understand what is callback theoretically plus practically. So before I explain what is callback, anyone knows what are callbacks in JavaScript? What are callbacks in JavaScript? Anyone have the idea about it? Yes, so I got one answer. Okay, so let me explain, guys, what are callbacks. Callbacks are those functions which are passed as an argument to another function. What are callbacks? Callbacks are the functions, are the JavaScript functions which are passed as an argument, That is callback function. Callback are the JavaScript function which are passed as an argument. Now, what is the meaning of this? Let's try to understand. Let's suppose I am creating one JavaScript function. Let's suppose I am creating one JavaScript function F1. And in this, I'm just adding one statement called F1 is called. Now, this is a JavaScript function. Now, if you want to execute the function, if you want to execute the instructions of this function, what we need to do? We have to call this function. Now, how to run this code? How to execute this code? For that, you can open the terminal and you can use the command node space your file name. File name is callback. Now, if I press on enter button, this code is going to get executed. In your terminal here, you will see this message, F1 is called. You got F1 is called. Now, this is a normal function. This is normal named function we call. Now, this function can take one parameter. It can take parameter. Now, if this function is taking parameter, I need to pass argument. And let's print our parameter also in the console. Now here, as an argument, I am passing one number. Which type of data I am passing? Number type of data I am passing. Now this 100 will go and store in this X. And when we are trying to print the X, that 100 will print here. See here. If you see here, we got F1 is called and here we got 100. Now instead of 100, I can pass string also. If I'm passing the string type of data, it will print the string. If I want, I can pass Boolean value also. If I pass Boolean value, it will print Boolean. So how I am able to pass number type of data, string type of data, Boolean type of data as an argument? In the same way, I can pass one function also. I can pass one function as an argument. So if you want to pass one function as an argument, we should have one function. So let me create a function called F2. And in this, I will just add F2 is called. Now, if you see, I have two functions. I have F1 function, I have F2 function. And I am calling here F1 function. Now, to this F1 function, I am passing F2 function as an argument. I am passing this f2 function as an argument. Now this f2 will go and store inside this x. Now if you see, the moment I execute my code, you will see that here it is printing that function f2. Now in this case, this f2 is called callback function. Now why f2 is called callback function? Because we are passing f2 as an argument. We are passing f2 as an argument. So if I take this screenshot of this code and if I paste here in the paint file, now in this case, remember guys, f2 is called callback function. This f2 function is called callback function. It is callback. It is called callback function. Now, which functions are callback functions? The functions that you pass as an argument. F1 is not a callback function. F2 is a callback function. Understood, guys? Just read this statement. Take 2 minutes of your time. Read this statement. Try to understand what code I have written. And if you get any doubts, feel free to add your queries on the chat. Okay? So I'm giving 2 minutes to go through this statement, understand this code. And if you have any doubts, feel free to add on the chat. And if you understood, just type understood in the chat. Okay, if you understand, just let me know, guys. Or if you got confused, type confused. Or if you did not understand, just write I did not understood or I did not understand. Like that. Okay, it is very important, guys. In future, if you are planning to learn React or maybe Angular or maybe Node.js or maybe MongoDB, if these are the plans to learn for you in future, then callback concept is very important. Asynchronous programming is very important. That's why you should understand all this. Okay. Now there is one more way. If I want, I can do like this also, guys. If I want, I can do like this also. I can call f1 function. And inside this parenthesis, directly I can define anonymous function or arrow function. Directly I can define one function here. Like this, I can define one function. And here I can write, I am callback. Now this is called anonymous function. Function without name. Function without name is called anonymous function. Now if I run my code, let's see what is the output. Now see, it is saying that anonymous function. Now here, in this case also, this anonymous function is called callback function. In this case also, this anonymous function is called callback function. Here, this part is called callback function. So this part is called callback function. So this is callback function. This is another way. Means we have two ways. If you want, you can define one function separately outside and pass that function name. This is one technique. Another technique, no need to define any function outside. Directly define here only. This is another way to use your callback function. We have one more way. If I want, I can do like this also. I can pass one arrow function. Without function keyword and function name is called arrow function. So here I will say arrow as a callback. Here also I will just add anonymous as a callback. If I want here, I can just call F1, I can pass F2 like this. Named function as a callback. Like this, I can write how many times I want. So if you want, you can pass like this. You can follow this technique, or you can follow this technique, or you can follow this technique. Like we have multiple techniques. You can follow any technique. You can go with arrow function technique. You can go with anonymous function technique, or you can go with named function technique. Any technique you can go. Okay, so we should know all this because different people will use different techniques. Some people will use this technique. Some people will use this technique. Some people will use this technique. So if you are clear with all the techniques, then you will not have any kind of problems. Okay, so remember these techniques, guys. Now all these functions will go and store in this X. If you want, you can call this X like a function. Because we know that inside this, our callback functions are going to store. So if you want to call those callback functions, then you can use this parameter name and you can call it. You can call it. See the output now. If I run my code, it will be like this. See, F1 is called, then named function as a callback. Again, F1 is called anonymous as a callback. Again, F1 is called arrow as a callback. It means these functions are getting executed now. F2 got executed, then this function got executed, then this function got executed. And here we are getting the results. And just for our easy sake, for our understanding sake, I will do like this console.log of, like this I will add hyphen so that you will understand the different function calls easily. Like this. See, F1 is called named function. So in this case, F2 was callback. In this case, anonymous function is callback. In this, our arrow function is callback. So 3 results we got. So I will be sharing this code also with you guys. Whatever coding part I will do, right? I will share this part also with you, so that it will be useful for you after the workshop. If you want to try, if you want to practice, then you can use these examples. Okay, this is the callback. Yeah, these are the 3 different techniques. Okay, this is one technique, this is another technique, this is another technique. Okay, and all these techniques are going to explain us callback only. Here F2 is callback, here anonymous is callback, here is arrow call. Which technique you have to use? You can use any technique. You can use any techniques, but the more popular technique is this one. Then people will prefer this technique. This technique no one uses, no one prefer. So I will just add here comment, no one prefers. But at least you should know, because we have that, we should know. So always you prefer this one. Give the first preference to this technique. Then you try to give the preference to this technique. This is what callback. Next, we need to understand about the promises. We need to understand promises. Okay, this is very, 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 very important topic, guys. Especially if you guys are a full stack developer. Whether you are a Java full stack, .NET full stack, Python full stack, or UI full stack, whatever full stack you are, promises is very, very, very important when it comes to front-end development. When it comes to front-end development. So promises in JavaScript. Promises in JavaScript. It's very, very, very important. If you go to any full stack interview, if they wanted to ask any questions on front end, or if they want to ask questions on JavaScript, 100% this question they are going to ask. Now, why this question is so popular? Why this concept is so important? Once you start your development, once you start working as a full stack developer, every day you are going to deal with this concept. Whenever you are going to do API integration, this concept is going to come into the picture. And if you are a node developer, then everywhere you will use promises. Everywhere we will use promises. And these promises, callbacks, functions are going to help us to implement asynchronous programming. They are going to help us to implement asynchronous programming. Now, how they are going to help us to understand that? First, we need to understand what is callback, what is promises. And that is what we are trying. So in this workshop, we have understood what is callback till now. Now, let's understand what is promises. Okay, so we will discuss in very detailed way what is promise. And you go and search this topic in any YouTube, guys, any YouTube or anywhere. I am pretty sure that maximum people will get confused. Because they will explain in that way. In very confusion way, they will explain. If you want, you give the try. After our workshop, open anybody's lecture or go to any YouTube channel and search about promises in JavaScript. If you want, you go to your popular people who are on the YouTube and just check their explanation. And I'm pretty sure that you will get confused. Now, let me try to explain what is promises based on my experience. I have worked for 8 years, so I know what is promises because I have used this concept practically in my projects, in my applications. So I know the best possible way to explain it from my end. So I feel my explanation is something which is different. I'm very confident on that. Okay, so let's try this. Let's try. So before I explain what are promises in JavaScript, I just want to know what is promise. If anyone knows what is promise in JavaScript. What is promise in JavaScript? Anybody have the idea? It contains failure and success information. But what is the meaning of failure and success information? Okay, that is where we are going to get confused. Okay. Yes. So let me try to explain, guys. If someone asks you what is promise, then your answer should be very straightforward. Promise is a special object in JavaScript. Promise is a special object, or simply you can use the term object in JavaScript. What is promises? Promise is a object. This is where people will fail. They will give so many other answers, but they won't explain exactly what is object. Okay, so what is promise? Promise is a special object in JavaScript. What is object? Anybody knows what is object? Anybody knows what is object, guys? In JavaScript or any programming language, the concept is same. Object concept is same across all the programming language. Now, don't say instance of class, okay? Okay, what is instance means? Again, we will be blocked. Contain properties and methods. Key value pair means what, guys? Key value pair properties means what? Okay, any other answer? You have to answer in such a way that opposite person should not ask any questions to you. And even if he asks, you should be able to explain. Like if I ask, what is key value? What is property? Then what will be your answer? Collection of data, runtime entity. What do you mean by runtime entity? Promises, callback, handler. No, guys, all these answers are not right. So as a developer, as a software developer, we should not give all these answers. If you give all these answers, people will feel that you have only theoretical knowledge and you read all these statements somewhere and you are telling. Okay, so let me try to explain what is object. Object is a data structure, guys. What is object means? Object is a data structure. It is a one of the data structure in JavaScript. Not only JavaScript, you take any programming language, object is a data structure. Now, lot of people don't know what is data structure also. Because I have taken lot of interviews and when I ask what is data structure, people don't know. Okay, very few people know what is data structure. So remember, data structure is a pattern technique or mechanism to store and manage the data. It is a mechanism, or you can call technique, to store and manage the data. So when you join any data structure course, they are going to explain these techniques in those course. So object is one of the technique. Like that, we have array, which is another technique. We have linked list, which is another technique. Tree, map, graph, stack, queue, all these are the techniques to store and manage the data. So in simple words, if I want to explain what is promise, then I can say that promise is a special way to store and manage the data. That's it. Managing the data means inserting, accessing, modifying, or updating. All these operations are called managing. So what is promise? Promise is a special way, or you can call technique or mechanism to store and manage the data. In very, very simple words, or in very easier words, if I want to explain what is promise. Now, this is theoretical way of understanding promise. Now, same thing we have to understand practically. Okay, let's try practically what is promise now. Now, what is promise? I told promise is a object. Here I have explained that promise is a object. I have told promise is a object. Now the question is how we create object in JavaScript. How to create objects in JavaScript. Now there are two ways to create objects in JavaScript, guys. There are two ways to create object in JavaScript. Now what are those two ways? Let's try to understand. The first way is called literal notation. Using literal notation, we can create the object. Another way of creating the object is called using class constructor. With new operator. This is another way. Using literal notation, if I want to create object, and if you want to create object using literal notation, then this is the way. It's very simple way, guys. What you need to do, you just need to define one variable. For example, var data, and just assign open curly brace, close curly brace. This is called literal notation to create object. Another way of creating the object is using class constructor. So JavaScript is providing us one predefined class called promise. And that class provides one constructor called promise, because constructor names are always similar to class name, same as class name. So the promise class constructor is also promise. And before constructor, we have to use one special operator called new. So whenever you call promise constructor with the new operator, internally it creates promise object and it returns that promise object. So let's see practically now. So promise.js. How to create promise? There are two ways. The first way is you can use var. Here I can say data equals to one simple object. This is also promise. This is called literal notation. If I want, I can print my promise in my terminal. Like this, I can print. So let me run this code. It will print this object in my terminal. See, node promise. It is printing object. Right now, we did not store any data. It's an empty object. This is one way. What is the another way? Another way is using promise constructor. So I will say var promise object equals to new operator and promise constructor. It is a predefined class, so directly you can access. It's a predefined class, directly you can access. So whenever this line executes, it creates one object, and that object is called promise, and it will be returned. Now that we are storing here. Now let me just do console.log of promise object. Now this constructor, this promise constructor will take one argument, and that is one callback function. So let's pass one callback function. So promise constructor takes one callback function. This callback function takes two parameters called resolve and reject. Resolve and reject. Resolve and reject. Now see, if I run my code, both the objects will print in my terminal. Now see here, open curly brace, close curly brace. Now here also you have curly brace, close curly brace. Some label called pending. What is that pending? We will discuss. And which type of object it is? It is a promise object. That's why I told promise is a special object. It is a special object. It's like, no, it's not a normal object. It's a special object. That's why if you see, when we are trying to print our promise object, we are getting some label, like we are getting here promise, and here we are getting one label called pending. What is that pending? We will discuss. So right now we are understanding how to create promise. We are trying to understand how to create promise. So how to create promise. Okay, I have created detailed notes for all this. Okay, so I'm not writing all the definitions in live class, because if I start writing definitions, it will waste our time. So I'm just writing shortly in this paint file, but detailed notes I will give you with definitions. So this is how we create promise. So how to create promise, guys? Let me just create new file. I will say new promise.js. Let's learn the second way using constructor. Use new operator, call promise constructor. It returns promise object to you, var promise. This is the step one. This is the step one. So let me take the screenshot of this. This is the step one. Okay, I'm going very slow so that you guys understand exactly what is promise. Now this promise constructor will take one callback function. So pass one callback function. You can pass arrow function or you can pass anonymous function. Whatever you want, you can pass. This is the step two. Step two. Here I got step two. Now let me just make it 15,000. And let me add this. Yes. Now let's step three. This callback function will take two parameters. You can give whatever name you want. I'm giving resolve and reject. This is the step three. Go and paste here. Step three. This is the way to create promise. This is the final way. So I have written multiple steps so that when you are practicing, it is very easy for you. 1, 2, 3. Now here, if you try to print console.log of, if you try to print promise, it will print in your terminal. Node, new promise. See, here we got this one. Let me take the screenshot of this output and let me explain what is this pending. Here, this pending, this label indicates, here this label indicates inside our promise, we don't have any data. Here pending indicates our promise is created, but in that promise, there is no data. It's an empty promise. So pending label indicates promise object is empty. It's empty. So whenever you get a label like this pending, it means in that promise object, there is no data. It's an empty data. But I want to store some data. I want to store some data in this promise object. I don't want to keep it empty. So how to store the data in the promise object? How to store the data in the promise object? Now, to store the data in the promise object, there are two ways, guys. The first one is using resolve function. Second one is using reject function. Using resolve function and using reject function. This resolve and reject are two predefined functions. They are predefined functions. Means we should not create those functions. Already those functions are created by JavaScript and they are providing those functions to us. We have to utilize these functions to store the data in the promise object. And these functions are available. These functions are available to us using these parameters. So in first parameter, always resolve function will be stored. In second parameter, always reject function will be stored. Now, who is storing those functions here? Internally, JavaScript will do. We need not to worry. Now, we need to utilize these functions. So inside this callback function, you can call resolve function. You can call it because it is a function, you have to call it. Now to this function, you pass some argument. What argument? Whatever data you want to store in the promise, that data you pass as an argument. Suppose in this promise, I want to store number type of data like 100. So pass that 100 as an argument. Now you are giving this 100 to resolve. What resolve will do? It will add this 100 inside this promise. Just see here, the moment I run my code, now you will see inside our promise, now we got 100. So what resolve is doing? It is storing that data in the promise. In the same way, instead of resolve, if you want, you can use reject also. And you can store whatever data you want. Here also I am storing 99. Let's see, 99 will be stored in the promise or not. Now if I come back here, see here, this is the promise object. Here you got 99. And here again, one more label called rejected. What is that label? I will tell you. But if you see inside your promise object, we are storing 99. It means using resolve and reject, we can store the data in the promise. So if you store the data in the promise using resolve function, if you store the data in the promise using resolve function, then that data is called success data. That data is called success data. We call that data as a success data. In the same way, if you store the data in the promise using reject function, then that data is called error data or failure data. We can call it as a failure or error data. We call it as a failure or we call it as a error data. This is very, very important. Now someone told, right, promise stores success data or failure data. And then I have asked what is success, what is promise? This is where you will get the answer. So if you are storing the data inside the promise using resolve, the data is called success. If you are storing the data in the promise using reject, that data is called failure or error data. It means what? Inside the promise, we are storing data only. We are storing data only. That's why I told what is promise. If someone asks you, then you have to say that promise is a object. It is a object. What is object? Data structure. Data structure means technique to store and manage the data. So in simple words, we can say promise is a special way or technique or mechanism to store and manage the data. Manage the data. And what is that special way? Object way. So promise is an object to store and manage the data. How to create promise? There are multiple ways. You can go with this literal notation or you can go with the promise way. So this is how we create the promise. This is the way how we create the promise. Now these ways are decided by JavaScript. We are just following what they have said. They are saying if you want to create a promise object, you have to create in this way. And once promise object is created, when we are trying to print that promise object, it is giving us a label called pending. Pending means our object is empty. Our object is empty. Now, how to store the data in the promise? For that, we have two predefined functions, resolve and reject. Resolve and reject. Right now, we are understanding what is promise. Then we will try to understand how callbacks and promise will help us to implement asynchronous programming. How they are going to help us. I told, right? It is very, very big topic. It is very, very big topic. So what we have done right now, we have created one promise object like this. In that promise object, we are storing some data. Let's assume that like this, I am storing some data. Like this, I am storing some data. Now, sometimes we need to access the data of this promise. Whatever data we are storing in the promise, we want to access that data. Let's assume that someone is giving us promise object. In that promise object, there is some data. Now I want that data. So we need to understand how to access the data from the promise. How to access the data from the promise. How to access the data from the promise. Now to access the data from the promise, there are two ways. The first way is using then and catch. And one more way is using async and await. Async and await. How to access the data from the promise. Right now we have seen how to create promise, how to store the data in the promise. Now we need to learn how to access the data from the promise. So before I move towards this, I just wanted to know, have you guys understood what is promise, how to create promise, and how to store the data in the promise? Okay, so come back here, guys. What is promise? So promise is a object. Now how to create promise? Let's try one more time. Create promise. So if you want to create promise, the first step is you have to use new operator, then promise constructor. Now it will return one promise object, hold in one variable. Where obj. Now in this, we have promise. Now this constructor will take one callback function. So just pass one callback function. This callback function will take two parameter, resolve, reject. Now using this resolve reject, we can store some data in this object. Let's suppose I want to store one array. I want to store one array in this object. How to store array? For that, use resolve or reject and pass one array as an argument. I am passing here 10, 20, 30. Now what this resolve function will do? it will take this array, and it will store in this promise object. Now, when I do console.log of obj1, and if I run this node create promise, you will see that one promise object is printing. This is the object promise object. In that we have one array. Understood, guys? How to create promise and how to store the data in the promise? You can use resolve or you can use reject. Both you can use. If you are using resolve, this data is called success data. If you use reject, same data is called error data. So first understand what is success data, what is error data. In future, when I take one real-time example, then you will understand like when to store the data in the promise using resolve, when to store the data in the promise using reject. That you will understand. But for that, first you need to understand what is resolve, reject, how to store. Okay. Yes. So shall we continue this part in our next workshop? How to access the data from promise? Or do you want me to continue now? Do you want me to explain this part now? Or do you want time to practice all this and then come back to this part? So in next workshop, I wanted to explain how promises and callbacks are used to implement asynchronous programming. This is the main topic for the next workshop with real-time example, with general, nothing but with basic, and real-time use case, or you can call it as an example. Because this point itself will take 2 hours. To understand how promises and callbacks are used to implement asynchronous programming with a basic and one real-time example, it will take almost 2 hours. But if I directly start with this, so many people don't know what are promises and callbacks. I know that. That is the reason in this workshop, I tried to explain what is callback, what is promises. Now you are clear what are promises, what are callbacks, how it works. Now we need to learn how they are going to help us to implement asynchronous programming in JavaScript. Okay, so let me at least explain this part, how to access the data from promise. So it's very simple, guys. So if you want to access the data from promise, what you need to do on our promise object, let's assume that this is our promise object. On this promise object, you have to call 2 predefined functions called then and catch. On our promise object, call then function, call catch function. Like this you have to call. This then function will take one callback function as an argument. Catch will take one argument, that is callback function. So if you want to access the data from promise object, you need to call then and catch. This is how we are going to call. Then we'll take one callback function. Promise will take one more callback function. Let me divide this into 2 steps like this. So here, let me remove like this. Let me remove like this. So on promise object, you have to call two predefined function called then and catch. Now then will take one callback function, catch will take one callback function. And this both the callback functions will take one parameter. This both the callback functions will take one parameter. Here you have success data and we call here error data. We call this as a error data. We call it as a error data. Now in this promise, inside this promise, if you stored data using resolve, let's assume that in this promise, you stored the data using resolve function. In that case, then will be executed. In that case, then will be executed. And whatever data you have in this promise, that data will be copied here. That data will be copied here and this callback function will be called. This callback function will be called. Suppose in your promise object, if you are storing the data using reject function, in that case, catch will be executed. And the data of this promise object, will be copied in the parameter, of this callback function. Here it will be copied. And this function will be called. It means the data of the promise, we will get the access using this callback functions. Okay. Now let's try practically. This practically. So let me close all this. Let me create here then.js. Let's go step by step. First, I need to create promise. So already in previous file, we created one promise, right? So I will copy that. I will paste here. So I will say here promise. If you see, we have created one promise object. Now in this promise, we are storing the data using resolve. What we need to do now, on our promise, call then and then call catch. This is the step 1. So on our promise object, call then and catch. Now then will take one callback function. It will take one callback function. Catch will also take one callback function. See, then is taking one callback function, call is taking one callback function. Okay. Now here take one parameter. I will say success data. Here I will take error data. Now in this callback function, I will write one console.log and I will say success data. And then I will try to print this success data parameter. In the same way, here also, I will add error data. And here I will try to print error data. So let's see which callback function will be called. Now, as per our understanding, in this promise, we are storing the data using resolve. So if you store the data using resolve in this promise, in that case, then will be called. Internally, then will call this callback function. And whenever this callback function is called, this line will execute. And whatever data you have in the promise, that data will be copied here. And that parameter also we are printing. Let's see that array will print or not. So go back here and run node then. And you see here we got success data and we got exactly that data what we are storing in our promise. Now let's try catch. Let's try catch. So I will copy the same code as it is. Same code I will copy as it is. I will paste here. The only change what we need to do now, don't use resolve, use reject. And let's change the data. Here let me pass true, comma, false, comma, true, comma, true. Some Boolean values I am storing in my array. Now inside the promise, we are storing the data using reject. Using reject. So in this promise, if you store the data using reject, in that case, callback catch will be called. Catch will be called. And internally, catch is going to call this callback function. It is going to call this callback function. Let's see this callback function will execute or not. Error data. Let me clear node space catch. Now see, we got error data, and you will see here we got that array with true false true false. See, here we are using reject. In previous file, we are using resolve. Now, one of the student asked, can we call both functions together? Reject here. If I call both the function, what happens? So if you call both the functions, in that case, whichever function you are calling first, it will execute. And it will terminate the execution of this function. It means this next line will never execute. This line will never execute. So in between resolve and reject, you have to execute or you have to call only one function. Both the functions you cannot call. Even if you call both the functions, only first encountered function will execute. See here. So here I am calling first resolve. I am in the then file. I am calling resolve. See here what it will execute now. Node then. It is executing success data because the first one is resolve. Now, if I add reject first before resolve. Now let's execute again node then. Now here you got error. See, when I execute node then, here I got success. Second time if I execute by changing this flow, now here I am getting error. So both functions will not execute. Only one will execute. That is why you have to use any one, not both. Okay, I will comment this code. Now, if I execute, it will execute success data. If I execute node catch, see node catch I am executing, then error data. So this is how we access the data from the promise using then catch. This is one way. Another way is using async await. One more way is using async await. And this approach we will learn in the next workshop. And then we will discuss what is the difference between these two, which approach we should follow. That we will discuss. And then we will discuss this point. How promises callbacks are used to implement asynchronous programming. Asynchronous programming. Yeah, if you use if else condition, then any one will execute, right? If or else, it will execute any one. So that will work. Here, if you want to use if else, yes, you can use, because if else is going to help us to execute any one function at a time. Either you can execute reject or you can execute resolve. Understood, guys? So what we have covered in today's session, let me try to brief. We started our session with understanding what is JavaScript. Then we have understood what is single-threaded, what is synchronous, what is programming language. And then we discussed drawbacks of synchronous. And in that process, we came to know that we have to go with asynchronous programming. Now I have explained you what is asynchronous programming. Then we were understanding how to implement it, how to implement asynchronous programming, how to implement asynchronous programming, how to implement asynchronous programming. In that process, we came to know, that we can implement asynchronous programming using callback, promises, and timer functions. And then we started our discussion on what is callback. We discussed what are callbacks. So we have seen theoretically, we have seen practically. Then I have explained what is promise. In that we learned how to create promise, how to store data, in promise, what is resolve and reject, and we have seen how to access data from promise. Okay, how to access data from promise using then and catch. This is what we have discussed in today's session. This is what I have discussed, guys. Okay, just for your understanding, guys, I am starting a new batch called React.js with JavaScript and TypeScript. I am starting a new batch called React.js with JavaScript and TypeScript. In this course, I am going to explain JavaScript from basics to advanced, completely from basics to advanced. It's like the person who don't know anything in the JavaScript, they can easily attend. So completely from zero to advanced, I am going to teach. Basics means completely zero basics to advanced. In the same way, TypeScript also zero to advanced, and then React also from zero to advanced. And finally, all this will be project-based learning. It will be project-based learning. The duration of this batch will be for 2 months. It will be for 2 months. And recently at 6 p.m., I started with UI full stack. In that UI full stack, I will be covering HTML, CSS, JavaScript, Bootstrap, React, Angular, TypeScript, Node.js, Express.js, MongoDB, Git, GitHub in very detail. And we are going to build 3 projects. 3 projects we are going to build in UI full stack. Right now in that batch, I have just completed HTML. Only HTML is completed. If you think you know HTML, from Monday, we are going to start with CSS. So if you want to attend that UI full stack, you can attend that. So UI full stack includes your React, Angular, Node, Express, everything it includes. If you think, no, I want to learn only JavaScript and React.js, then you can attend this. So the timing of this is morning 8:30 a.m. So React.js with JavaScript and TypeScript, I am starting from Monday at the morning 8:30 a.m. And it is offline plus online. First 5 or 7 sessions will be demo sessions. So if you wanted to attend that demo sessions, freely attend 5 to 7 demo sessions. After that, you decide what you want to do. Whether you want to continue or you don't want to continue. If you think already you know all this, ignore it. Just ignore it. Just attend the workshops, learn the things from it. If you are not interested, just ignore this part. Okay, so I just introduced my batches, which I am starting from Monday, just for those people who wants to learn. Okay, and let me share the syllabus with you so that you can have a syllabus, at least you can go through that syllabus, what I will be covering in entire UI full stack and in React JS and TypeScript. So let me just share that syllabus with you guys. Okay, this is the syllabus, guys. This is the complete full stack syllabus. In that syllabus only, you will find JavaScript and React syllabus also. So whether I am taking React separate batch or it includes UI full stack batch, syllabus is same to same syllabus. It's not like if I am taking full stack batch, then I will teach only little bit in React. It's not like that. React will be completely from zero to advanced level. So I have given the syllabus link to you on the chat. So you can go through that syllabus. That is the PDF format. You can download it. Okay. Now it contains almost 50 pages syllabus. It's a 50 pages syllabus, guys. In this, I have mentioned all the MERN stack syllabus. So if you want, you can download this syllabus. Whenever you get time, go through each and every topic. If you want, you can compare this with any other platforms and then you decide. And attend demos, guys. Attend demos so that you will understand how I teach, how the course content is, how I am explaining, whether it is understandable to you or not. All those things you are going to understand. Okay. So I will be sharing this paint file. And as I have mentioned, I will be sharing this PDF to you, today's workshop PDF. Okay. So I will share with the management and they are going to share with you guys. So you can have a look on this notes, go through these notes, practice it, and you should be learning something from this workshop. Whether you are joining my batches or not, that is the secondary part, but you attended almost 1.5 hours here. So something you should learn from this session. If you feel, yes, I have learned something from this session, then yes, this workshop was successful. Okay, let me know on the chat, guys, how many of you felt, yes, I learned something which I don't know. Like if you got that feel, then feel free to add a message, yes. And if you feel that you did not learn anything, already you know all these things, just type no, so that I will get the idea how my session went. Okay, UI full stack fees related things you ask to admin people. They are the best people to explain, guys. Okay, I think UI full stack is around 18,000, that entire package, and only React maybe around 8K or 10K. React with JavaScript and TypeScript is around 8K or 10K something. Like I'm not pretty sure about it. Yes, you just connect with admin or you just connect with Ashok IT. They will help you with the fee structure, or if any discounts are going on, they will help with that. Yeah, so tomorrow we have another workshop, guys. It is on Git and GitHub. Okay, join that workshop. I'm pretty sure Git and GitHub, you will learn something. Okay, tomorrow we have workshop on Git and GitHub. Now this workshop, which I am going to continue next week, next Saturday or Sunday, I will continue today's workshop. Okay, just attend tomorrow, guys, tomorrow's workshop. If possible, tomorrow only I will share these notes with you. I will create one GitHub repository. I will update my notes all there. Anyways, we are going to learn Git and GitHub tomorrow. So I will let you know how to access that notes, how to download that notes. I will let you know that. Tomorrow we have Git and GitHub session. And today's workshop continuation we will do next week, not tomorrow. Okay. So how to implement asynchronous programming with promises and callback, that we are going to learn next week, next Saturday. And tomorrow is Sunday. And tomorrow I am going to take the workshop on Git and GitHub. Okay, all the links you will get from platform, guys. Just visit ashokit.com. On that website, you will get everything. Okay. Or else just connect with the admin people, they will help you. Yeah. So the people who don't have any doubts, you can leave. I think this video will be uploaded on YouTube. So everybody will have recording as well. So if you registered for this session, right? So everything you will get on the mail. I will ask management to provide recording, provide notes on your mail. Okay. So you will receive everything on the mail. So you have registered, right? So we got your email IDs. So we will mail you guys.